You have probably never walked into a room and thought, I am the smartest person here. In fact, you have probably done the opposite. You have sat quietly while someone spoke with confidence about something you knew was slightly wrong, and you said nothing. You assumed they knew better. You assumed you were missing something. And that quiet hesitation, that instinct to question yourself before questioning anyone else, may be one of the clearest signs of something you have never fully accepted about yourself. Most people picture intelligence as loud. They imagine quick answers, impressive vocabularies, effortless success. But psychology suggests that real intelligence, the kind that runs deep, often looks nothing like that on the surface. It looks like doubt. It looks like silence. And it looks like someone who is always thinking but rarely showing it. If you have ever wondered whether you are actually intelligent or just good at pretending, there is a reason that question exists in your mind. And the answer may surprise you, because the people who ask that question are almost never the ones who need to worry. Researchers in cognitive psychology have spent decades studying the gap between perceived intelligence and actual intelligence. What they have found is consistent and, for many people, deeply counterintuitive. Those who overestimate their intelligence tend to be less capable than they believe, and those who underestimate it, the ones who quietly assume they are average, often possess cognitive abilities well above the norm. Psychologists David Dunning and Justin Kruger identified this pattern in the late 1990s, and it has been replicated across dozens of studies since. The core finding is simple. The more you know, the more you realize how much you do not know. And that awareness feels like inadequacy, even when it is actually the opposite. So here are 7 signs that your intelligence runs deeper than you have ever given yourself credit for. The first sign is that you are constantly aware of what you do not know. Most people feel comfortable settling into what they already understand. But if your mind is always pulling you toward the edges of your knowledge, always reminding you of gaps, always making you feel like you should read more or think harder, that is not a sign of weakness. That is intellectual honesty. And it is one of the rarest forms of intelligence there is. Studies in metacognition, the science of thinking about thinking, show that highly intelligent people have a sharper awareness of the boundaries of their own understanding. They do not confuse familiarity with mastery, and that constant awareness of the unknown is what drives deeper learning, even though it often feels like falling behind. The second sign is that you adapt quickly when things change. You may not think of this as intelligence, but cognitive flexibility, the ability to shift your thinking when circumstances shift, is one of the strongest markers of fluid intelligence. If you are someone who adjusts your approach when a plan falls apart, or who instinctively recalculates when new information arrives, your brain is doing something that many brains struggle with. It is letting go of a mental model and building a new one in real time. That is not just coping. That is high-level cognitive processing happening so smoothly that you do not even notice it. The third sign is that you think about your own thinking. If you catch yourself replaying decisions, analyzing why you reacted a certain way, or wondering whether your thought process was sound, you are engaging in something psychologists call metacognitive monitoring. Most people go through life acting on their thoughts without ever examining them. The fact that you step outside your own mind and look at it from above is not neurotic. It is a form of self-directed intelligence that correlates strongly with problem-solving ability, emotional regulation, and long-term decision quality. You are not overthinking. You are doing something most people never learn to do at all. The fourth sign is that you feel deeply uncomfortable with small talk, but come alive in meaningful conversation. This is not social awkwardness. Research in personality psychology suggests that people with higher cognitive engagement, the ones whose brains are always processing at a deeper level, find surface-level exchanges genuinely draining because their minds are wired to search for patterns, meaning, and connection. When conversation stays shallow, their brain has nowhere to go. But when a conversation shifts to something real, something layered, something with emotional or intellectual texture, they light up. If this sounds familiar, your discomfort in casual settings is not a flaw in your social wiring. It is a signal that your brain is built for depth. The fifth sign is that you are harder on yourself than anyone else is. Intelligent people tend to hold themselves to internal standards that no one else can see. You finish something that others praise, and your first thought is about what could have been better. You carry a quiet awareness of the gap between what you produced and what you imagined. This is not perfectionism in the clinical sense. It is a byproduct of being able to see further ahead than most people. You can envision a higher version of the outcome, and that vision becomes the ruler you measure yourself against. The cost is that you rarely feel satisfied, but the cause of that dissatisfaction is not inadequacy. It is clarity. The sixth sign is that you notice patterns other people miss. Yet maybe you pick up on shifts in someone's tone before anyone else in the room registers that something is wrong. Maybe you see connections between ideas that seem unrelated on the surface. Maybe you walk into a situation and immediately sense something that takes others much longer to identify. Pattern recognition is one of the most fundamental components of general intelligence, and people who score high in it often do not realize it is unusual because it feels so automatic. To you, the pattern is obvious, but that is precisely the point. The fact that it feels effortless does not mean everyone else sees it too. They do not. And the seventh sign is that you often feel like you do not fit in. This one is rarely discussed, but it is deeply consistent across research on intellectually gifted adults. When your brain processes the world at a different speed or depth than the people around you, social connection becomes harder, not because you lack social skills, but because the rhythm of your thinking does not always match the rhythm of the room. You may have spent years wondering what was wrong with you, why conversations felt slightly off, why groups felt tiring, why you always seemed to be observing from a half step outside. Nothing was wrong. Your mind was simply operating on a frequency that not everyone around you shared. Here is what most people never tell you about intelligence. It does not always feel like a gift. It often feels like weight. The self-doubt, the overthinking, the quiet sense of not quite belonging. These are not signs that you are less intelligent than you wish you were. Yet they are often the direct consequences of being more intelligent than you have been willing to believe. Psychology does not define intelligence as the absence of struggle. It defines it as the capacity to process, adapt, reflect, and recognize complexity. And if you have spent your life doing all of those things while quietly assuming you were average, then the gap is not between you and intelligence. The gap is between what you are and what you have allowed yourself to see. The most intelligent people are not the ones who announce it. They are the ones who carry it quietly, question it constantly, and never quite feel like they have earned the word. And that, more than any test score or academic record, may be the most telling sign of all. And if this felt like it was describing something you have always sensed but never said out loud, you are not imagining it. This channel is built to explore exactly these kinds of patterns, the psychology behind the parts of yourself you have always noticed but never had a name for. Subscribe if you want to keep exploring. And if someone came to mind while you were watching this, send it to them. Sometimes the most meaningful thing you can do for someone is to help them see what they have been too close to notice.